The returned Zerathi fleet approaches. Commander Zethra stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, watching the blue marble of Earth grow larger on the main display. 500,000 years had passed since the Zerathi Empire last visited this insignificant world on the galaxy's outer rim. Back then, primitive humans had barely discovered fire and lived in simple caves. The Zerathi had taken biological samples, studied the planet's resources, and marked it for future colonization when their empire needed expansion. "Commander," called Sub-Commander Crix from the sensor station, "we're detecting unusual energy. Signatures from the planet's surface." Zethra's 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the readings. The Zerathi were an ancient race, tall and elegant, with crystalline skin that reflected their moods in shifting colors. They had ruled over dozens of star systems for millions of years, guiding younger species and claiming worlds as needed. Earth was supposed to be an easy acquisition. "What kind of energy signatures?" Zethra asked, his skin flickering from confident blue to curious yellow. "That's the strange part, sir. The readings are similar to our own quantum fusion technology, but somehow more refined. The entire planet appears to be generating massive amounts of clean energy." The bridge fell silent. Quantum fusion was the most advanced power source the Zerathi had developed over their long history. For a primitive species to have discovered anything similar was impossible. "Perhaps our equipment is malfunctioning," suggested Navigation Officer Yenth. "It's been a long journey from the core worlds." But Zethra wasn't convinced. As they entered Earth's outer atmosphere, more anomalies appeared. The air composition had changed dramatically since their last visit. The oxygen levels were perfect, the pollutants were gone, and there were traces of engineered particles that shouldn't exist naturally. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission," announced Communications Specialist Vrex, his tentacles dancing across the control panel. "It's coming from the planet's surface, and sir, it's in perfect Zerathi. First contact protocol." The main screen shifted to show a human face. The being looked similar to the primitive specimens they had studied 500,000 years ago, but there was something different about the eyes. They held intelligence and confidence that seemed impossible for such a young species. "Welcome back to Earth, Commander Zethra of the Zerathi Empire," the human said calmly. "My name is Dr. Elena Vasquez. We've been expecting you." The bridge erupted in shocked whispers. Zethra's skin flashed bright red, the color of alarm. "How? Do you know my name? How do you speak our language?" Dr. Vasquez smiled, and there was something unsettling about her expression. "We've had a very long time to prepare for your return. Would you like to come down to the surface? I think you'll find Earth quite different from what you remember." Against his better judgment, Zethra found himself curious. The Zerathi had protocols for dealing with primitive species, but this situation was unprecedented. A species couldn't advance from stone tools to quantum technology in just 500,000 years. It was scientifically impossible. "Prepare. A landing party," he ordered. "Full defensive measures." Landing on a changed world, the shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere toward coordinates provided by the humans. Zethra expected to see the same forests and primitive settlements they had observed during their last visit. Instead, he found himself staring at a world transformed. Massive cities stretched across continents, but they weren't the crude constructions he expected from a developing species. These were architectural marvels that seemed to grow organically from the landscape itself. Towers reached into the sky like living trees, connected by bridges that hummed with energy. The entire surface of the planet pulsed with a network of light that was visible even from orbit. Sir, whispered Subcommander Crix, the energy grid covering this planet is more sophisticated than anything in our empire. How is this possible? They landed in a clearing that opened up specifically for their arrival, the ground literally reshaping itself to accommodate their shuttle. A group of humans approached, led by Dr. Vasquez. She was tall for her species, with dark skin and silver hair that suggested advanced age. Yet she moved with the vitality of someone much younger. Commander Zethra, she said, offering a greeting. Gesture that was perfectly executed according to Zerathi custom. Welcome to New Earth. Zethra stepped out of the shuttle, his security team flanking him. The air was clean and energizing, filled with microscopic particles that seemed to enhance his natural abilities. Dr. Vasquez, I don't understand what we're seeing here. When we last visited this world, your species had barely discovered agriculture. That's true, she nodded. But you left something behind during that visit, something that changed everything. She gestured toward a nearby structure that rose from the ground as they approached. Inside, holographic displays showed the history of human development over the past 500,000 years. But this wasn't the slow, natural evolution Zethra expected to see. After your people left, Dr. Vasquez explained, we found fragments of your technology, pieces of your equipment that had been damaged or discarded. Most species would have worshipped these artifacts as divine gifts. But humans, we have a different approach to the unknown. The human approach, the holographic display, showed early humans discovering Zerathi technology fragments. Instead of fearing or worshipping them, human scientists had begun systematically studying every component. Generation after generation of researchers dedicated their lives to understanding alien engineering principles. It took us 50,000 years just to understand your basic energy matrices, Dr. Vasquez continued. Another 100,000 to develop the tools needed to replicate your materials. But once we understood the fundamentals, human innovation took over. Subcommander Crix studied the displays with growing amazement. These humans didn't just copy our technology, they improved it. Exactly, smiled Dr. Vasquez. You see, the Zerathi are an ancient and stable species. Your technology is refined and perfect, but it's also predictable. Humans, on the other hand, are chaotic innovators. We took your quantum fusion principles and asked a question your people never considered. What if we could make it smaller, cleaner, and more efficient? The display showed human scientists working across millennia, each generation building on the discoveries of the last. They had developed quantum fusion reactors that were a fraction of the size of Zerathi versions, but produced 10 times the energy. They had created materials that were stronger than anything in the Zerathi database. Most importantly, they had done it all in secret. You hid this from us, Zethra said, his skin flickering between impressed yellow and concerned orange. When our scout ships passed through this system, they reported a world of primitive beings. We've been very careful about what we let your scouts see, Dr. Vasquez replied. Humans excel at misdirection when necessary. We wanted you to return when we were ready, not before. The underground network, Vasquez led them deeper into the facility, revealing the true scope of human achievement. Beneath Earth's surface, a global network of interconnected cities housed billions of humans. The underground civilization was a marvel of engineering that put even Zerathi architecture to shame. We learned from your empire's history, Dr. Vasquez explained as they walked through tunnels that stretched for thousands of miles. You conquer species that develop too quickly in the open. So we built our real civilization where your sensors couldn't detect it. The tunnels were lined with quantum processors that hummed with incredible computational power. Holographic maps showed the network extending across all continents, connecting every major population center. Humans had been living and working in this hidden world for hundreds of thousands of years. The surface communities you observed were deliberately kept at a primitive level, she continued. We needed to maintain the illusion that humanity was still developing naturally. Meanwhile, our real civilization was growing stronger underground. Captain Marcus Chen, a human military officer, joined their group. His equipment was clearly advanced, incorporating technology that seemed familiar yet alien to Zarathi eyes. We've been monitoring your empire's expansion patterns for the past 100,000 years, he said calmly. We know about your conquest of the Draxian worlds, your subjugation of the Colliery Federation, and your current conflict with the Vorian Alliance. Zethra's skin flashed bright red. That information is classified at the highest levels of our government. How could you possibly know about our military operations? Because we've been watching, Chen replied. Humanity learned early that knowledge is the ultimate weapon. We've had observation posts in 17 different star systems, all disguised as natural phenomena. Your empire never noticed them because you weren't looking for something that advanced from such a primitive species. The technology demonstration of Vasquez led them to a vast chamber where human engineers were working with technologies that defied Zarathi understanding. Massive quantum computers calculated solutions to problems that would have taken Zarathi systems centuries to solve. Materials fabricators created substances with properties that shouldn't have been possible according to known physics. We didn't just reverse engineer your technology, Dr. Vasquez explained. We used it as a starting point to develop our own innovations. Human creativity, combined with Zarathi scientific principles, has produced some remarkable results. She activated a device that created a small sphere of controlled energy in her palm. The sphere contained more power than a Zarathi fusion reactor, but was perfectly stable and safe to handle. We call this quantum compression. Your people never explored this application because your technology philosophy favors large, stable systems. Humans prefer compact, adaptable solutions. Sub-Commander Crix ran his scanner over the device and stared at the readings in disbelief. The energy density is impossible. This violates several fundamental laws of physics. It violates understanding of physics, Dr. Vasquez corrected gently. But physics itself is much more flexible than your people believed. Humans have always excelled at finding new ways to use old rules. The demonstration continued with technologies that seemed like magic even to the advanced Humans had developed faster-than-light communication without the massive infrastructure the Zarathi required. They had created self-repairing materials that could adapt to any environment. Most impressively, they had learned to manipulate quantum states on a scale that allowed them to alter matter at the atomic level. This is impossible, Zethra muttered, his skin cycling through confused patterns of color. No species could advance this far in such a short time. That's where you're wrong, Dr. Vasquez said kindly. You're thinking like a Zarathi, focusing on gradual, steady improvement over millions of years. Humans think differently. We're problem solvers who thrive on impossible challenges. You gave us the greatest puzzle in the galaxy, and we've spent 500,000 years solving it. As the tour continued, Zethra began to understand the true scope of what humanity had accomplished. They hadn't just built advanced technology. They had created an entirely new approach to science and engineering that combined Zerathi precision with human innovation. The result was a civilization that was in many ways more advanced than the ancient Zerathi Empire. The implications were staggering. If humanity could accomplish this in isolation, what might they achieve if they had access to the full resources of galactic civilization? For the first time in his long military career, Commander Zethra began to question whether the Empire was still the dominant force in the galaxy. The engineered truth, the human proposals. Vasquez led the Zerathi delegation to the heart of the underground complex, a massive chamber that served as humanity's command center. The room was filled with holographic displays showing real-time data from across the galaxy. Star maps tracked the movements of hundreds of species, trade routes pulsed with economic information, and military positions were updated continuously. "Welcome to the Nexus," Dr. Vasquez announced. "This is where humanity coordinates its activities across known space." Commander Zethra stared at the displays in growing shock. The scope of human intelligence gathering was beyond anything the Zerathi Empire had achieved. "You've been spying on everyone." "Not spying," corrected Ambassador Sarah Okafor, a tall woman with intricate tattoos that seemed to shift and change as she moved. "Observing and learning. Humans are naturally curious about the galaxy around us. When we discovered we weren't alone, we decided to understand our neighbors before introducing ourselves." The central display showed a detailed map of the Zerathi Empire's territory. Every world was marked with detailed information about resources, population, military strength, and technological capabilities. But it wasn't just the Zerathi. Similar data existed for dozens of other species and civilizations. "You know more about our empire than our own intelligence services," Sub-Commander Crix observed, his scanner working frantically to record everything he was seeing. "That's probably true," admitted Dr. Vasquez. "Humans have always believed that information is the most valuable resource in the universe. We've spent centuries gathering data about galactic civilization, studying every species we could find." The Hidden Evolution Ambassador Okafor activated a new set of displays that showed the secret history of human development. "Commander Zethra, what you're seeing here is the result of a species-wide project that began the day your people left Earth. We call it the Long Preparation." The displays showed how humans had organized themselves after discovering Zerathi technology. Instead of competing nations and cultures, humanity had united around a single goal: preparing for the return of the aliens who had visited their world. Every major decision for the past 500,000 years had been made with this purpose in mind. "We knew you would come back," Dr. Vasquez explained. "The Zerathi Empire follows predictable patterns of expansion. You visit worlds, mark them for future colonization, and return when your population requires new resources. We had 500,000 years to get ready." The long preparation had involved more than just technological development. Humans had engineered their own evolution, using advanced genetics to enhance intelligence, extend lifespans, and improve physical capabilities. The people standing before the Zerathi delegation were not the same species that had lived on Earth during the last visit. "We enhanced ourselves carefully," Dr. Vasquez continued. "Not just physically, but mentally and socially. We eliminated genetic diseases, improved cognitive function, and developed new forms of consciousness that allow for collective thinking and decision-making." Captain Chen gestured toward a display showing human brain activity. "We can link our minds temporarily to share knowledge and solve complex problems. A single human consciousness can access the memories and expertise of thousands of others when needed." This explained how humanity had advanced so quickly. Instead of each generation having to rediscover previous knowledge, humans could directly transfer experience and understanding from one mind to another. The accumulated wisdom of 500,000 years was available to every member of their species. The galactic network, but our greatest achievement, said Ambassador Okafor, was learning to hide in plain sight throughout the galaxy. The displays shifted to show a three-dimensional map of known space. Hundreds of points of light indicated human observation posts, research stations, and hidden facilities. They were everywhere, disguised as asteroids, natural phenomena, or abandoned structures from extinct civilizations. Every major spacefaring species has human observers living among them, Dr. Vasquez revealed. We developed adaptive genetics that allow us to take on the appearance and characteristics of other species. Some of your own citizens are actually human agents who have been reporting back to Earth for generations. Zethra's skin flashed bright red with alarm. That's impossible. Our security screening would detect any biological anomalies. Not when the beings in question are genetically identical to your species, Captain Chen replied. Human science has advanced to the point where we can temporarily rewrite our own DNA to match any biological template. Our agents aren't disguised aliens. They are, for all practical purposes, native members of your species who happen to retain human consciousness and loyalty. The implications were staggering. If humans had agents embedded in the Zerathi Empire and other major civilizations, they would have access to classified information, military secrets, and strategic planning data. Humanity hadn't just been preparing for the Zerathi return. They had been preparing for contact with galactic civilization as a whole. The technological revolution. Vasquez led them to another section of the complex, where human scientists were working on projects that seemed to defy known physics. The Zerathi technology you left behind was impressive, but it was also limited by your species' way of thinking. Humans approach problems differently. She showed them a device that could manipulate gravity itself, creating localized fields of altered spacetime. Your people use massive ships and enormous amounts of energy to travel between stars. We wondered if there might be a more elegant solution. The gravity manipulator was small enough to fit in a human hand, but it could create gravitational effects that would normally require the mass of a planet. Using networks of these devices, humans could create stable wormholes that allowed instant travel across vast distances. We've been using this technology to maintain our observation network, Captain Chen explained. Our agents can travel from Earth to any point in the galaxy in a matter of hours, not months. But the technological marvels didn't stop there. Humans had developed quantum computers that could process information faster than the speed of light. By utilizing parallel dimensional calculations, they had created self-replicating manufacturing systems that could build entire cities from raw materials in a matter of days. Most impressively, they had learned to manipulate time itself on a limited scale. Time dilation fields, Dr. Vasquez explained, showing them a chamber where time moved at a different rate than the surrounding space. We can accelerate research and development by creating pockets of fast time where years of work can be completed in hours. The human philosophy as the demonstration continued. Zethra began to understand that humanity's achievements weren't just technological. They had developed an entirely different philosophy of existence that emphasized cooperation, innovation, and long-term thinking. The Zerathi Empire is built on the idea of gradual expansion and careful control, Ambassador Okafor observed. You conquer worlds, integrate their populations, and slowly extend your influence across the galaxy. It's a stable system, but it's also predictable and limited. She gestured toward displays showing human settlements throughout the galaxy. Humans believe in exponential growth through cooperation. Instead of conquering other species, we learn from them and help them achieve their potential. Instead of slowly expanding our territory, we create networks of allied civilizations that benefit everyone. This was perhaps the most alien concept. The Zerathi had encountered. Their empire was built on hierarchy and control. The idea of willing cooperation between equals was foreign to their way of thinking. "You're suggesting an alliance," Zethra said slowly, his skin shifting to thoughtful purple. "We're suggesting a revolution," Dr. Vasquez replied. "Not a violent overthrow, but a fundamental change in how galactic civilization operates. Instead of empires competing for resources and territory, we could have a cooperative network of species, working together to explore the unknown." The final revelation, the tour concluded in a chamber that contained humanity's greatest secret. At the center of the room stood a device that looked like a crystalline tree, its branches reaching toward the ceiling and roots extending deep into the earth. Energy flowed through its structure in patterns that seemed almost alive. "What is?" it asked Sub-Commander Crix, his scanners unable to make sense of the readings. "We call it the consciousness engine," Dr. Vasquez replied. "It's our greatest achievement and our gift to the galaxy." The device, she explained, was capable of accelerating the evolution of consciousness itself. Not just for humans, but for any species willing to participate. It could enhance intelligence, expand awareness, and create new forms of thinking that transcended the limitations of individual minds. Every major breakthrough humanity has achieved over the past 100,000 years has been the result of enhanced consciousness, she continued. We learned to think beyond the constraints of individual brains, to process information collectively, and to approach problems from multiple perspectives simultaneously. The offer was implicit. The Zerathi could choose to continue their slow expansion across the galaxy, maintaining their empire through force and control, or they could join humanity in a new experiment in cooperative evolution, enhancing their own consciousness and helping to create a truly galactic civilization. "Why are you offering this to us?" Zethra asked, his skin cycling through confused patterns of color. "You could have remained hidden, continued your secret development, and eventually surpassed us entirely." Dr. Vasquez smiled. "Because isolation leads to stagnation, and stagnation leads to extinction. Humans learned that lesson from studying your empire's history. The Zerathi have been the dominant galactic power for millions of years, but you've also been essentially unchanged for all that time. You've reached a plateau." She gestured toward the consciousness engine. "This technology requires diverse perspectives to reach its full potential. Human innovation alone isn't enough. We need the wisdom of ancient species like the Zerathi, the analytical minds of the Kaleri, the creative spirits of the Vorian. Every species has something unique to contribute." The choices the Zerathi delegation prepared to return to their ship, they faced a decision that would determine the future of their empire and possibly the galaxy itself. They could report back that Earth was ready for conquest, though the military challenges would be unprecedented. They could recommend negotiating a traditional alliance with humanity as equals, or they could take the unprecedented step of considering the human proposal for fundamental change. "You have time to decide," Ambassador Okafor said as they reached the surface, "but not unlimited time. Other species have already begun to accept our offer of enhanced consciousness." The Kaleri Federation voted last month to begin the integration process. Several smaller civilizations are establishing joint research projects with us. She paused at the entrance to the Zerathi shuttle. The galaxy is changing, Commander Zethra. The question is whether the Zerathi Empire will help guide that change, or be left behind by it. As their shuttle lifted off from Earth's surface, Zethra stared down at the transformed world below. In the space of a single day, everything he thought he knew about galactic civilization had been proven wrong. A species they had dismissed as primitive had not only matched their technological achievements, but had surpassed them in ways that challenged the fundamental assumptions of Zerathi society. The report he would send back to the Empire would be the most important communication in Zerathi history. 500,000 years ago, they had visited a world of primitive humans and marked it for future colonization. Now they had discovered that those same humans had been preparing for their return all along, turning their apparent weakness into unprecedented strength. The age of simple conquest was ending. The age of cooperative evolution was about to begin, and humanity, the species the Zerathi had dismissed as irrelevant, would be leading the way into a future that none of them could fully imagine. As Earth disappeared behind them, Zethra realized that they weren't returning home with news of a successful scouting mission. They were returning with evidence that the galaxy itself was about to change forever, and the Zerathi Empire would need to evolve or risk becoming a relic of the past.